I thought I had it all. A wife who smiled at me every morning. A life that felt like it was going somewhere. But one night I came home to find her with him. In our bed. The room smelled like betrayal, and the sight of them burned into my mind like a scar that'll never heal. 3 years, 3 fucking years she lied to my face. That's when I knew. Everything I'd built, every moment we shared, was nothing but a lie. Now it's all about revenge, and it's going to burn them both. My name is Jacob Galloway, and I work as a lineman fixing power lines and cables. I'm the person they call when the power goes out because of a storm, and I work to restore it, even in harsh weather conditions, so people can enjoy their comfortable lives at home while I face the cold. I do like my job, but I don't enjoy the company I keep. But that's a story for later. The most surprising part is that I'm in jail for fighting. Not exactly a great way to start a story, but is there really a normal way to do anything these days? Normal seems to mean being humiliated, heartbroken, and knocked down all at once. Yes, that's my current reality. Just to be clear, I'm very single, especially after what I discovered about my life. I'm not a tough, muscular guy, I'm quite average. At 28 years old, I stand 5'9", and I have a regular build. I've never been in a fight before, but after what happened, I can't believe I made it this far without one. In the last day, I went from a regular married guy to someone whose world fell apart. I was living a normal life, working and coming home to my wife. But then I found out something shocking. I became a joke. Now here I am, sitting in a cell, my body aching with bruises and cuts. Despite the physical pain, it's nothing compared to how hurt I feel inside. It's like I've been run over repeatedly while everyone chuckles at me. And now, when I don't like it and show my feelings, I'm seen as the villain. Tonight didn't help my case, that's for sure. I still can't grasp how everything went wrong. I understand why I'm here, and I don't regret standing up for myself. I just wish I had been stronger. I sit alone in my cell, and as I do, I hear footsteps approaching. I realize I'm lucky it's quiet tonight. I'm not sure whether to feel relieved or ashamed of that, so I just accept it, along with everything else that has gone wrong in my life. If anyone had seen me last night, they would think I fought valiantly. Even the toughest fighters would admire my spirit. Finally, the guard comes over. Usually he's not very kind, but tonight he looks a bit sorry for me. That's when you know you've hit rock bottom, when even the unfriendly ones feel pity for you. "Jacob, you posted bail," he says. I look up, my bruises evident. I wonder who helped me. For a moment, I think about staying in the safety of my cell rather than face the world outside. I know the news about me will spread fast, and everyone will see how much I've lost. I can't even hold on to my pride. Here I am, stuck with the reality of my situation. As I walked down the hallway, I was unsure of who I'd see waiting for me. But when I reached the lobby, I spotted him. My dad. His familiar smile always makes me feel better, no matter how dark things seem. "Hey, old man, how are you?" he asks warmly, and suddenly I am overwhelmed with emotion. All the pain I had held inside rushed out as my dad pulled me into a comforting hug. He drove 3 hours just to be there for me, even though I had told him not to worry. He's an Air Force veteran with so much strength and bravery, and here he stood, reminding me of happier times. "Dad?" I said, breaking down in his arms. He held me like he did when I was a kid, reassuring me that everything would be okay. "Dad, I'm so sorry," I managed to say, despite my earlier words about not needing him to come. He must have used his connections to help pay my bail. He always knew how to pull favors. "Let's get you home." I nodded, knowing that my home wouldn't feel the same without my wife there after everything that happened. The ride home was quiet. My emotions swirled inside me, and I didn't know whether to smile, cry, or be sick when I thought about her. Once inside my childhood home, everything looked smaller, almost as if time had shrunk the space. I hadn't been there since high school, and it felt like a different world. I took off my coat and collapsed onto the couch, staring at nothing. I questioned everything. Who, what, where, when, why, and how did this happen? Was it something I did or didn't do? Thoughts swirl in my mind like a wild storm, just a mess. My dad brings me back to reality when he opens a can of beer and sets it down beside me. He takes a sip of his diet soda. He's been sober for 15 years, and he's doing great. I think to myself that my dad is really amazing, and I feel proud of him. Then I hear him say, "Mom will be home soon. She went to the store to get something for you to eat. I think it's been a while since you had a good meal." I can't argue with that because my stomach growls in agreement. My dad gives me a kind smile. "You've had better days, haven't you?" he says jokingly. We share that inside joke, calling each other old man. I manage a smile when I reply, "Yeah, you could say that. I thought I told you I was fine." Dad just grins and says, "I know you said you were okay, but every parent knows that when kids say they are fine, they might be hiding the truth." "You're my son. My job as your father didn't stop when you turned 18. It won't end when you're old either. It ends only when I'm gone," he says. I take a deep breath, feeling grateful. Right now I feel less alone, and that feels good. "I love you too, Dad. Thanks," I say. He raises his soda can for a toast with my drink, then looks at me seriously. "So, what happened? Talk to me." This is the moment I have to dive into my story and share where it all began. My dad knows the basics about me, but you don't. So let me tell you about Jacob. Years ago, I was born in Lancaster, Pennsylvania during a thunderstorm. My parents were stuck there for a visit, but we lived at Dover Air Force Base when I was young since Dad was in the service. Many people outside Pennsylvania only think about Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and the debate over what to call soda is never ending. But anyway, I was a regular kid with two loving parents, my dad, Simon Galloway, and my mom, Angela Galloway. My mom moved to the U.S. from Scotland when she was 17. She is still a beautiful woman, even in her late 40s now. Dad always says she's like a character from a fairy tale, red hair and all. She's about 5'5" with blue eyes. Mom is the type of person whose actions say more than her words. She has a heart of gold and strong determination. That's one reason my dad fell in love with her. Mom was raised by my grandfather, Michael Morgan, a hard-working man who ran the factories. Sadly, my grandma Lucy passed away when Mom was born. Life was hard, but Grandpa ensured Mom felt safe and loved. He taught her to stand up for herself and encouraged her to learn a lot. By the time she was 13, she spoke 3 languages. She visited family in the U.S. as a teenager and loved it so much that she convinced her parents to stay. She is both beautiful and strong. Mom didn't like the stereotype that redheads can't control their feelings, so she worked hard not to be ruled by them. She was usually kind but could defend herself if needed. My dad grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, where he had to be tough. He was the only boy around and fought off kids who teased him. He gained a reputation as someone who could handle himself. What many didn't know was that he learned from a retired boxer named Leonard Galloway, who helped him when he was 11. Dad never met his own father because he died in Vietnam. So, he was raised by my grandma, Sophia Connors. It was rare to see a loving relationship between people of different backgrounds back then, but love prevailed. By the time Dad was 17, he was strong and skilled in boxing. He could have gone pro, but trouble found him when he caught the attention of a dangerous man, Morris Jackson. Dad didn't want to get involved with Morris, who wanted to use him for muscle. When Morris attacked Dad, he dodged and fought back, but the situation ended badly. Morris was hurt and died from the fall. My dad ended up facing serious charges and had to make a choice: serve time in prison or join the military. He chose to join the military, which changed his path. Mom and Dad ran into each other at the courthouse. Mom was finishing her citizenship process, and Dad had just avoided going to jail by joining the United States Air Force. They met when he was on his way to boot camp. At just 17, Dad was heading there anyway. When they first crossed paths in the courthouse, there was an instant spark. Some might call it love at first sight, but Mom would often say he was just cute to keep things light. They chatted briefly in the hallway, sharing contact details to stay in touch. Mom sent him letters filled with love, and Dad said those letters helped him feel close to her despite the difficult times he faced. After his service, he returned home and proposed to Mom, holding her close in his arms. Many thought that was a quick decision, but their love lasted through the years. Eventually, they had me after Dad finished his time in the military. We moved to Lancaster after staying in military housing while Dad served in Iraq. Dad became a bus driver, and Mom took a job as a teacher. Now, back to me. I apologize for digressing sometimes. I was a regular kid who tried to avoid trouble. Like many kids, I sometimes found myself a target for bullying. When I say I was an easy target, I mean I seemed perfect for it back then. Many of the kids who tried to bully me stopped once I stood up for myself. Bullies often look for those who won't fight back or have backup when needed. But when someone they think they can push back fights back, it changes everything. I had my share of scuffles in school. I never quite understood why. I kept to myself, enjoying things like Star Wars, comics, and Warhammer 40K. For the most part, school was pretty uneventful. I did have a few bullies who would write mean things on my desk or make false claims about my family. It didn't help that I wore clothes from Walmart. Even though my parents taught me to dress neatly and comfortably, some kids made fun of me for it. Things took a turn during my junior year when a group of bullies jumped me at lunchtime. I was just eating my sandwich when Derek, the star quarterback, punched me for standing up to his cousin. It was a rough situation, and in the end, I was hurt pretty badly. My parents were furious when they found out. Mom had to be calmed down when she wanted to confront the school principal about the bullying, but they opted to pursue a lawsuit instead. Derek was expelled and faced consequences for his actions, which impacted his future in sports. Around this time, I met my future wife, Janice Winters. Janice was new at school when I got out of the hospital. Thanks to the lawsuit, Dad got me a classic car, a 1970 Chevelle that needed fixing up. We worked on it together over the years, and by the time we finished, it looked stunning with its glossy black paint and a white stripe. It was this car that brought Janice and me together. One day, while I was heading to the parking lot, I saw her leaning on it. She was the most beautiful girl I had ever seen. She had shoulder-length blonde hair and bright blue eyes. Even though she was in her cheerleading uniform, I didn't like her leaning on my car. I politely asked her to step away, and she was surprised by my response. When she wanted to know who I was to speak to her like that, I replied confidently, "The owner of the car." She smiled back at me, and our conversation took a light turn. We started laughing and instantly clicked. From that point on, we became an unexpected couple. In our senior year, everyone noticed us. A military kid from a working-class family paired with the school's most popular girl from a wealthy background. Many were confused by our pairing, but some were also envious of our connection. I wish I could say that we clicked like magic or had a ton of things in common, but honestly, we just cared deeply about each other. We were different from others, but we fit perfectly together. I helped her with her schoolwork, and she supported me when I felt low, especially during her parents' divorce. I was there when we found out my mom had breast cancer. She was always there for me. We built our relationship on these moments and the things we did for each other. We were young, but we knew we loved each other. We shared a special moment for the first time when we were 18, after our senior prom. What I loved most about her was her determination. When she set her mind to something, nothing could stop her. She aspired to be a nurse, so she attended community college after graduation. I found work in cable construction. I started at the bottom and gradually moved up over the years. After we lived together for a while in an apartment, I saved up and proposed to her on our anniversary. When I knelt to ask her to marry me, she cried tears of joy and jumped into my arms. My parents were thrilled for us. My mom had recovered from her cancer and was getting healthier. My dad was proud of me for taking this step, but her parents had a different reaction. Her father, Alex Winters, who was a well-known businessman, did not approve of me at all. No matter what I did, it was never enough for him. From the moment he found out we were dating in high school, he looked at me like I was someone unusual. When I asked for his daughter's hand in marriage, he reacted with anger. He threatened me, but the next day he came to my apartment and apologized. He shook my hand and gave me his blessing. I didn't know why he changed his mind, but I later heard a rumor that my dad had a talk with him that night. That talk was said to be intense and intimidating. After that, Alex stopped bothering me. He never spoke to me again, which I was fine with. Her mother, Marie, wasn't any better. She would insult me whenever she got the chance, calling me names and saying I was just a distraction for her daughter. Once, she even said this in front of my mother. Both women went to the restroom, and when they returned, Marie seemed a bit more respectful. I wasn't sure what happened, but she tried to be nice to me after that. What mattered most was that I was going to spend my life with the woman I loved. Our wedding was at 20, and it was beautiful. We held it at a local church with family and friends. I still remember how stunning she looked as she walked down the aisle in her dress, like a fairy tale. We bought a house with help from my parents. They insisted on paying for most of it. We made wonderful memories in that home. We enjoyed our time together there, sometimes even in the backyard. Our neighbors probably noticed us from time to time. As time went on, we grew in our careers. I became a foreman for the state, working on various projects, often responding to emergencies. Janice became one of the youngest and best doctors at her hospital. We both loved our jobs and always supported one another. Even though we received some stares from people when they saw us together, I was fine with it. I wasn't in perfect shape, but Janice remained beautiful, almost like a model. By 26, she looked like she had just graduated high school, if not for her confidence and work experience. There were tough times when work took its toll on us. Sometimes I had to work long hours during emergencies, and she had to attend important meetings. I shared my frustrations with her, but she reminded me that her position came with more responsibility. Despite everything, our love remained strong and meaningful. To keep our connection alive during busy times, we found creative ways to surprise each other. We sent little notes and thoughtful gifts to keep the spark alive until we were back together again. To say she was always seeking more would be an understatement. We had been together for 9 years and married for 6, and despite the occasional disagreements, our life together was wonderful. I didn't just share my life with my wife, I shared it with my best friend. We spent time together, talked about everything, and never kept secrets from each other. Over the years, our love grew stronger. Then one evening, I received the most important news of my life. After a long day at work, I came home at 11 at night, feeling tired. As I walked through the door, I saw her there, tears in her eyes, but she was smiling. "What's wrong?" I asked. Instead of answering, she hugged me tightly and whispered, "You're going to be a father." I couldn't help but tear up and smile. Me, the ordinary guy, about to have a baby with the most amazing woman. It felt surreal. I picked her up and spun her around in joy, showering her with hugs and kisses. When I finally set her down, she laughed and said, "If you keep spinning me, I might lose my lunch." We both laughed, thrilled at the idea of expanding our family. When we shared the news with our parents, mine were overjoyed and could not wait to spoil the baby. Her father was less enthusiastic, while her mother seemed happy, but looked at me curiously. Work also took an unexpected turn. One day I was called into the office of the regional director, Marcus Daniel. I assumed it was good news, maybe a raise or better benefits. But when I arrived, I saw a face I was not eager to see again. Derek Sanders. Seeing him made my stomach drop. He had kept himself in shape and looked even more impressive than before in a sharp suit. He smiled and extended his hand to shake mine, acting friendly because the higher-ups were watching. "Hey there. Long time no see," he said. I hesitated before responding. "Yeah, it really has." Then Mr. Daniels asked, "Hey, Jacob, Derek says you two were in school together, is that right?" I glanced at Derek, whose grin seemed overly proud. "Yeah, we met in junior year," I said. Derek jumped in, trying to sound nostalgic. "Yeah, we got into all sorts of mischief back then." I nodded, recalling the past but not wanting to dwell on it. Derek looked at me expecting support, but I decided to keep it light. "Yeah, that was ages ago. We've both grown since then." I noticed a flash of anger in Derek's eyes as I said that. Perhaps he remembered how I had once embarrassed him. As time passed, I finally asked, "So, why are you here?" Derek grinned. "Well, you're looking at your new regional manager." I was shocked. "What? Really?" "Yes, I know we're not friends. Back in high school, I was a real pain. I got sent to military school and it changed me. I've studied hard and earned my degrees. This is home, and it feels right to come back." He spoke sincerely, and Mr. Daniels seemed to appreciate it, almost tearing up. I was unsure of his true intentions. "Jacob, Derek will be helping with assignments from now on. Also, I know you've wanted the morning shift for a long time. Now you've got it." I couldn't hide my relief. I had always disliked the night shift. The thought of coming home in the afternoon was a welcome change. Derek continued, "And there are opportunities for you that will help with your growing family." I nodded, realizing how important it was for me to take care of Janice and our baby. I was pleased to know I could finally be there for them. I managed to smile, but I still didn't fully trust Derek. When I got home, I told Janice the news, and she was excited. "Thank goodness! Now I can have some normal time with you instead of waiting around tired all day." I hugged her tightly. "How's the baby doing?" Janice was showing her pregnancy now, at least 4 months along. She was on light duty at work, but I wanted her to take maternity leave soon. With the latest news, I felt like I could finally relax a bit. My partner smiled at the update. "Thank goodness this little one is keeping me on my toes. I'll hand in the paperwork to my supervisor tomorrow." Then she noticed I looked a bit worried. She gently lifted my chin, asking, "Are you okay?" I took a deep breath. "Yeah, just saw someone from my past I wasn't expecting." She raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Who?" I told her it was Derek, and her expression changed to surprise. "Everything all right?" I asked, noticing her reaction. She waved her hands dismissively. "It's nothing. Just remembering how difficult he was back in school. Wait, he's your manager now? The one you mentioned seeing earlier?" I nodded. "Oh, great. I'm sorry you have to deal with him now." "I wish there was something I could do to help you forget," she said, her voice soft as she leaned closer. I smirked. "I can think of a few things." I kissed her, and we embraced intimately. Even with the warmth between us, I still sensed some lingering issues I wasn't sure about. As the months flew by, I adjusted to my new work schedule. Derek had me traveling all over Pennsylvania. One day I was fixing a power line near a chemical plant in Philadelphia, and another day I was managing a power outage all the way from Allentown to Scranton. I was busy, but I always made time for my family. I'd leave early in the morning and return in the evening, and I treasured those moments with Janice and our baby, who was growing stronger every day. Janice always had a bright smile when I got home, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. One day at work, Derek appeared unexpectedly. I wondered why he was there in the muddy area where we were working. He called me over. "Jacob, I just heard that Janice is in labor. She's already at Hershey Medical. You're done for the day. Go now, and good luck." There was no need for him to say more. I drove from Reading to Hershey in under an hour, relieved that I didn't encounter much police traffic on the way. When I arrived at the hospital, I had to wear the required protective gear before entering the room. Janice looked in pain but seemed so relieved to see me. I needed to be there for the birth of our child. I had already told my parents and Janice's, even though her father typically didn't show much interest. Marie came with my parents, and she looked worried when she arrived. According to my mom, 12 hours later, we welcomed our daughter, Elizabeth Galloway, into the world. Seeing her for the first time was a magical moment. The nurse let me hold her, and I fell in love instantly. Her loud cries stopped when I held her close, and she looked up at me with a beautiful smile. I handed her to Janice, and we shared a special moment together as a family. We soon took our family home, where our parents and friends greeted us with a meal to celebrate our new addition. I had mentioned it at work, so it wasn't surprising when a few colleagues showed up, but seeing Derek there was unexpected. When Derek approached me, he hugged me and said, "Congratulations. I'm really happy for you. You deserve this." I was caught off guard by how sincere he seemed. He even gave Janice a friendly kiss on the cheek. Normally, I would have been upset, but this felt different. He seemed respectful, so I let it go. Then he surprised me by asking, "Can I hold her?" I hesitated, but decided to let him. After all, he helped me provide for my family, allowing Janice to take maternity leave. As he cradled Elizabeth, I noticed a tear in his eye. Many of my co-workers were warm toward Janice, and it seemed like he had brought some of his old friends from high school into the workplace. Everyone seemed to have matured over time. I couldn't have imagined that this year would change everything I thought I knew. As the months passed, things settled back into a routine. Janice returned from maternity leave and hired a nanny to help while we both worked. My job remained challenging but manageable. Janice started to receive unexpected bonuses, becoming well known in her field, leading to more work travel and meetings. She attended medical events frequently, at first a couple of nights a month. But soon she was coming home later, around 9 or 10. Whenever I expressed my worries, she listened and eased my concerns. Things would return to normal, which reassured me. One day at work, Derek called out, "Hey Jacob, how's everything? How's that lovely wife of yours?" I noticed his friends laughing a little, and I didn't like the feeling I got from the situation. A part of me wanted to confront him. The way he asked that question was wrong. It wasn't a compliment. It felt more like he was making a pass at her. Still, I stayed calm. She's doing fine, Derek. So is the baby. What do you want? I could tell he noticed the seriousness in my voice. Whoa, easy there. I'm just checking on your beautiful family, that's all. He was trying to seem friendly, but I didn't like the way he grinned with his friends beside him. They looked like they shared a joke I wasn't part of. I didn't say anything more and went back to my work. This year had brought changes, too. Some of the men Derek hired were people who used to pick on me in high school. I didn't understand it, but I intended to find out more. When I got home, I felt a tiredness I didn't want to carry. Nobody enjoys that feeling. I saw Janice singing to herself while making dinner, and when she noticed me, she jumped a little. It was amusing to see, but my heart weighed heavy with worry. Hey, sorry I startled you, I said. She must have sensed my unease because she approached me, her face filled with concern. Are you okay? You look like you had a tough day. I took a deep breath. Honey, are we good? That surprised her a bit. Of course we are. If something was wrong, I'd tell you. Why do you ask? I wanted to share Derek's comment, but something held me back. Instead, I focused on us. I just want to make sure everything is okay. Work has been intense for both of us. I'm just afraid we're losing touch because of our jobs. We haven't spent much time together lately, and making plans feels hard. She smiled gently and touched my face. I know it seems like we don't see each other as much, but I promise I would never hurt you. I love you. Hearing her say that eased my worries a little. We shared a kiss, which made me feel a bit calmer, but my mind still troubled over Derek and his crew. The next day, we learned about a big project in Pottstown. We were to help with the installation of fiber optic cables, which would improve internet services. I noticed Derek's grin again, and it started to annoy me. I had to focus on our team. I chose to bring along some skilled new hires. Derek kept his smug expression as I prepared for the job. He probably expected it to take all day, but I'd worked with my crew before. They were talented and efficient. It took us about 30 minutes to reach the site, and after making a plan, we got to work. Normally, a job like this would take 8 hours, but we completed it in just 3. When we finished, we congratulated one another. Those of us in cable construction know that working 6 miles of fiber means a good payday. Great job, everyone! Go home and enjoy some rest, I said. We completed it well, making a name for ourselves. I marked the job as done and sent the report to management. Now I just wanted to get home to a hot meal and relax with Janice. Since I finished work early today, I wanted to surprise her with something special. It wasn't any particular occasion, but I decided to stop at a store. It was usually late before I got home, but today I would be earlier than expected. I picked up her favorite organic apple juice and some peanut butter cups. I also found her favorite movie, Hook, with Robin Williams. We both loved it as kids, and I remembered her tattoo of a hook, which she joked was for me. That memory made me smile. I bought the movie, a drink, candy, and a sweet card. I wrote, My dearest wife Janice, having you in my life is a true blessing. / From the moment I wake up and see you next to me to the moment I go to sleep, feeling your gentle kiss, my day feels magical. My wife, the mother of my child, I love you with all my heart. Forever yours, Jacob. She's going to love this, I thought. Nothing could ruin this moment. As I drove home, I thought of how I'd surprise her. I considered sneaking up on her, but knowing her, she might think I'm an intruder and hit me with the nearest object. Maybe something silly like a cosplay prop I didn't know about. I could say something romantic, but she might laugh. I love her laugh, but I'm aiming for romance, not comedy. As I got closer to home, thoughts of how much I loved her filled my mind. I realized I had been wrong to doubt her. Derek was just being himself, and there was nothing going on between them that would harm our marriage. She loves me, and I love her. I needed to remind myself of that. I felt excited as I approached the house, ready to surprise her. This would be special. Maybe we could even go out, just the two of us, for the first time in ages. I thought about booking a babysitter and heading to the Silver Spoon, our favorite restaurant. But as I pulled into our driveway, something caught my eye. A car I didn't recognize was parked in front of our house, a 2024 black Jaguar XF. I knew who it belonged to. Derek Sanders. My heart sank. I looked up at our bedroom window where I've spent countless nights with my wife. And there they were. I couldn't process what I was seeing. She was there with him, close to each other, in a way that was supposed to be just for us. My heart shattered as I realized the truth. She was betraying me in our home with the man who tormented me in high school. The pain was unbearable. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. This wasn't the first time they had done this. It was clear from their actions. I needed to capture proof. I pulled out my phone and recorded what was happening, making sure to get everything as clear as possible. I heard him mocking me, and worse, I heard her responding with excitement. It felt like my world was crumbling. I couldn't believe this was happening. Who was this person? Where was the woman I loved? I forced myself to stay calm, knowing I would confront her soon. I called her, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't answer at first, and when she did, it was with frustration. She cursed under her breath, calling me a loser, while I could hear Derek laughing in the background. It was too much. I couldn't stay. I backed out of the driveway as quietly as possible, driving away without looking back. I didn't know what I was feeling. Anger, sadness, maybe something darker, but I knew I had to get away. If I went inside that house, I wasn't sure what I'd do. I drove aimlessly, trying to clear my head until I found a bar. I sat there staring at the beer in front of me, not able to drink it. Everything felt meaningless. All those years of love and sacrifice felt wasted. As I sat there, I heard a familiar voice, the last one I wanted to hear. "Well, well, if it isn't my old pal from work," Derek's voice rang out, full of arrogance. He had no idea what I had just witnessed. I didn't respond. I was too furious to speak. He went on, mocking me, congratulating me on my wife's beauty, while his friends laughed behind him. I had to leave before I lost control. I stood up, ready to go, but he stopped me. "Come on, don't be mad. I'm just trying to say you've got a beautiful wife. You're a lucky guy." His words were like a slap in the face, but I held myself back. I couldn't let him get to me, not now. I left without another word, trying to figure out what to do next. They probably know why he's acting like this. Just half an hour ago, he was in my bed with my beautiful wife. He was there, showing no respect for me. It's hard not to say what's obvious. She is stunning and smart. I pushed past him, brushing his hand away. It felt strange. My body was moving fast, but everything around me seemed slow. I had a strong urge to break something or hurt someone. He was close, but I fought the impulse. After witnessing what I did earlier, the anger was bubbling within me. Suddenly, Derek grabbed my shoulder and turned me to face him. He looked irritated and disrespectful. Who did he think he was? It made me laugh, considering he had always been arrogant, even back in high school. "Something funny, Jacob?" he spat, saying my name like it was an insult. My face was calm, but I was angry inside. After a moment, he regained his composure and continued. "You know we're celebrating the work you did today, right? I won't let your attitude ruin my mood. Go home to your wife. You look like you need a break." I struggled to keep my anger in check. The door was right there. I was almost home, but then he stepped in front of me. "Hey, I have one more thing to say." He leaned in and whispered, "Tell your wife I like her tattoo." At that moment, everything went red. I wasn't fully aware of what I was doing. I remember breaking Derek's nose and then pushing him back. I was filled with a mix of control and chaos. Suddenly, something hit me, but I was too angry to notice it. With an unexpected strength, I grabbed the guy's head and slammed it against the bar. He was out cold, and I could see the mess on the floor. Another guy rushed at me and tackled me to the ground, throwing punches at my face. They didn't hurt much. I used my thumb to press into his eye. He screamed, and everyone around started to panic and flee. I didn't care. I could hear Derek's voice struggling through what I had done to him, telling someone to hold me down. Then I felt punches, one to my ribs, another to my face. He stepped closer, sneering. "Not so tough now, huh? When I'm done here, I'm going to tell your wife about this." His words felt like a punch to my gut. I couldn't believe it. I had thought my life was good, but suddenly everything seemed fake. Before I could react, I kicked the guy behind me, breaking free. I pulled Derek down hard and then dealt him another blow. Without thinking, I grabbed a bottle and swung it at a guy who came up behind me. The glass shattered, and I slammed him onto a nearby table. He was out of the fight. I saw Derek approaching with a chair, but I knocked him to the ground, leaving him breathless. Then I started hitting him. The first punch made a sickening sound, and the next felt satisfying. With each punch, I thought about all the lies I had been told. The trips and late nights she had said were for work. They were all for him. Anger filled me, and I punched harder, feeling tears on my face but refusing to sob. I wanted to yell at him. Why did he do this to me? What had I done? As I hit him, I felt someone grab me, stopping me from delivering another blow. I was about to be angry at this person too, but then I heard a familiar voice calling my name. / Jacob, please stop. You need to, or you might really hurt him. And you don't want that on your mind, I promise. Wait a second, I know her. Jackie. Jackie Summers was a retired airman, just like my dad. She's a really nice woman from South Carolina with a big heart. She has a fit body that catches everyone's eye. What they don't know is that she has been through a lot. She and my dad worked on many missions together. She was one of the best pilots, not just at the base, but in Air Force history. She helped many people in combat and did incredible things in the air, flying different types of helicopters and planes. Because of her skills and determination, they called her Starscream. When I was a kid and things were calm, she would take care of me. She and my dad respected each other a lot. She's always been like family to us. She knew just what to say. Jackie. I stopped moving, waiting for her to answer. Yes, I'm here. I just got back from checking the storage and saw people running. Then I saw you like this. What happened? I looked down at Derek. I could see him crying through the blood on his face. Please, stop, I'm sorry. I then let Jackie help me up. She saw my tears, but I wasn't crying out loud. I told her, Jackie, Janice is not being honest with me. At that moment, I heard the police sirens and my phone rang. I answered it. Where are you? You haven't been home in hours. I'm really worried. I hung up before she could say more. Then I looked for the video, despite the mess on my hands. I found it in my contacts. I was looking for Janice, my wife, and Larry, my friend and lawyer. I sent them the video and wrote I want a divorce. Then I hit send. I decided to call my dad. I knew I might be going to jail for a while for what I did. I heard my dad pick up. I even heard my mom mumble next to him, Hello, Jacob. It's late. Are you okay? I replied as best as I could. Yeah, Dad, I'm okay. My dad has faced many tough situations, and he could probably tell something was off by my voice. But that's what parents do. They know when their child is in trouble. Son, are you all right? A tear fell down my face. I knew that my mom was now awake, sensing something was wrong. Feeling like there was no escape, I tried to make it sound small. Don't worry about me, Dad. I just wanted to say I love you both. Dad replied, We love you too, son. What's wrong? Then my mom picked up the phone. Jacob, my dear, what's the matter? Hearing her voice made my voice shake even more, and more tears came. I lied to my parents, telling them I was fine while fighting back the tears. Really, I'm okay. I'll be all right. You don't need to drive up here. I could see the police car in the parking lot. Listen, I have to go. I'll talk to you later. I love you. After hanging up and placing my phone down, I heard the police officer give commands. Show me your hands. I recognized it was a woman by her voice, but I was too upset to care. I complied and allowed her to cuff me. I heard Jackie saying, Jacob, it's going to be okay. I'm calling your parents now. The officer helped me into the police car. She was kind. Watch your head. There we go. She told me to stay calm for now, speaking to me in a nice way, even after what just happened. I saw more lights from the ambulance as I sat in the police car. I watched as they carried out the men I had hurt on stretchers, all bloodied and hurt. Some of them would definitely think of this as one of the toughest moments of their lives. I spotted Derek, but he turned away when he saw me. Most people would feel proud after standing up to someone like him, but I felt like a failure. I just discovered that my marriage wasn't real. The officer drove me back calmly. She said, I'm sorry for what happened. Your friend told me about the situation and showed me the video. I wish I could do more to help. I gave her a sad smile. You're doing your job, officer. Thank you for your support. But this is a challenge I must face, and face it, I will. She gave me a calming night as we arrived in the parking lot. She helped me get from the car to the hospital doors and stayed with me the entire time. For some reason, I felt a bit more at ease when she was nearby. Despite the mess my life had become, I think she even smiled a few times and joked a bit, which made me laugh. Eventually, the nurse took care of me. They fixed my injuries and treated my hands with some medicine and bandages. After that, we headed to the county jail to start the processing. You smell nice, I said. She looked surprised. "Excuse me?" I replied. "I mean your perfume. It smells like berries and flowers. It's really nice." She stammered, "Oh, thank you." We continued walking in silence, but I thought I noticed her smile a little as I followed her. Once I was processed, she gave me a gentle pat on the back before handing me over to the staff. "You take care of yourself," she said with a genuine smile before walking away. I was then taken to my cell. Fortunately, I was alone. I had no idea how long I was in there, maybe 6 hours or so. Suddenly, I was called out because my bail was paid, and I saw my dad waiting for me in the lobby. And that was that. I watched my dad carefully absorb everything I told him. He sat there deep in thought. I then asked, "Wait, where's Mom? And what about Janice? I expected them to be here. Plus, how did you both leave Delaware so soon? You were supposed to be at the reunion, right?" "I'm sorry, Dad. I feel awful." He gave me a light tap on the back of my head and smiled. "Jacob, it was just a bunch of old friends reminiscing about the past. I'm 52, and I've had plenty of time to enjoy old memories with my buddies. But my son needed me. You needed both of us. And we responded to the call. Simple as that. I'm your father, and even though your mother isn't here yet, we love you very much. It doesn't matter where you are. If we are alive, we will be there for you whenever you need us. Our role as parents doesn't end when you turn 18, but lasts until we are gone." Just then, the door opened, and I saw Mom bringing in groceries to cook a warm meal. When she spotted me, she practically dropped the bags and rushed over, wrapping me in the biggest hug I needed all day. "Oh, my sweet boy, I'm so sorry. Jackie told us everything. She sent us the video. That awful person hurt you. I could make what I did to that other person's mother seem mild compared to what that person deserves for hurting you." I couldn't help but chuckle a little, not only at her fierce spirit, but also for confirming what I had heard as a rumor. Dad found it funny, too, and soon we were all laughing together, even though I had just been through a really tough time. I reminded myself how strong we are and why I'm proud of our family. After I wiped my tears from laughing, I said, "Mom, you can't do anything like that. You could get into serious trouble for hurting someone," which made all of us laugh again after everything that had happened tonight. Once the laughter faded, Mom headed to the kitchen to prepare dinner. She was always a fantastic cook, mixing her Scottish roots with American flavors. She made a delicious meal with soup, marinated pork roast, buttery mashed potatoes, seasoned Brussels sprouts, and a fresh salad. I wondered how my parents stayed in such great shape. As soon as I asked that, I regretted it. After he swallowed his food, Dad said, "Because your mother is truly an amazing and loving woman." Mom almost spat out her drink. "For goodness sakes, Simon, our son doesn't need to hear that." Dad quickly replied, "Oh, come on. He's heard it all when we closed the door. It's not my fault I helped you find your sweet spot." Mom blushed but smiled. "You naughty man," she said, and I had to laugh. "Okay," I said. "I have enough on my mind. I don't need any more surprises." Mom joked back, "Oh, hush. It's all because of you." I found it hard not to chuckle before I replied, "God, just take me back to jail." We all laughed together. I realized it had been a long time since we shared such happiness as a family. Then, suddenly, I felt the tears coming. I was embraced by my loving parents, the only family I had left. I heard my mother say, "It's okay, my dear. Let it all out." Dad chimed in, "We're here for you, son. You're not alone. Let it all go." And so, I did. All the hurt, the confusion, the lies, and the difficult events of the night, everything I had been through. I cried, screamed, and released it all. My parents cleaned up after dinner, which had been wonderful despite the day's troubles. I helped put the leftovers away. Once everything was cleaned, we moved to the living room with drinks. Dad then asked, "So what now, Jacob? What do you want to do moving forward?" I took a deep breath. Well, it's clear that my marriage is over. Suddenly, my phone buzzed somewhere. I could have sworn I left it at the bar. Then Mom said, "Jackie kept it safe for us until we arrived." The police had already talked to witnesses and gathered lots of video footage about what happened. This footage even had sound. Jackie mentioned it should be helpful, and she would do everything she could if needed. I agreed. This could be important if they tried to say I attacked them for no reason. I sent the video to my divorce lawyer by email, and I knew he would call me as soon as he saw it. Then I realized I hadn't looked to see who had been trying to reach me. It was Janice. She had sent over 20 messages and missed calls, repeating the same old stories. "Can we talk? I miss you. It's not what you think. I love you. Please answer." I thought about blocking her, but I figured it might be helpful later. For now, I decided to keep it. I planned to get a new phone with a different number the next day. Both my parents agreed. I then said, "What I don't understand is why this happened. It makes no sense. We were happy together. I thought everything was great." Mom chimed in, "Jacob, it doesn't matter. Even if something was off in your relationship, your wife should have let you know instead of keeping it to herself. I know you don't like it when I flirt with your dad, but I love him. After so many years, I care about him deeply. She might say she loves you but still have feelings for someone else because she's afraid or something. That's unfair. A husband and wife should both connect deeply and explore things together in a way that builds trust and respect. Don't let her say things like, 'I love you this way.' It's different." I chuckled a bit as I imagined Mom mimicking Janice, but she was right. I could look at my actions, but I shouldn't be the only one at fault. "You're right, Mom. Thanks," I said, and she gave me a warm smile. "Of course I'm right. I raised you after all. I better be right." I felt grateful to have my parents with me. What Janice did was not just hurtful. It was selfish and wrong. When everything settled, Dad said, "Jacob, tonight we'll rest. Get as much sleep as you can. Tomorrow we'll prepare for what's ahead. It may not be a battle like I've seen, but it will still be tough. Just know you won't have to face it alone." With that, I headed for bed. It felt strange to be back in my old room. As I was trying to sleep, I suddenly heard a car in the driveway and loud knocking at the door. I recognized the voice too well. "Jacob, please let me in to talk. I can explain everything. Don't throw away the years we've had over this." I got dressed and opened my door, but my mother stopped me. I was already in jeans and a long-sleeve shirt. She took off her jewelry and looked at me with kindness. "My son, you've had a tough day. We made this room for your comfort. Please rest while I speak with your wife. I'll tell her you're resting and ask her to contact your lawyer instead. Does that sound good, Jacob?" After thinking for a moment, I decided I didn't want to deal with her right now. "Yeah, Mom, that's fine." I saw her smile, a smile that had comforted me many times before, letting me know everything would be okay. I let her handle it and finally allowed myself to sleep, which I had been missing since this whole situation began. As I closed my eyes, I wondered about the next day, my job, my team, and what would happen to me and Janice. I pushed those worries aside, feeling ready to face whatever was coming. Meanwhile, Angela arrived at the front door, her expression serious and calm as she put on her gloves. Angela is a strong woman who knows how to handle herself. She has learned to defend herself well over the years. Many have underestimated her strength, only to be taught a lesson they wouldn't forget. As she opened the door, Janice was about to knock again, but stopped when she heard the locks click open. She started to greet Jacob, but Angela stepped forward and pushed her back firmly. Janice took a moment to catch her breath from the sudden force. Angela stood her ground, closing the door behind her. The house was isolated, which meant there were no neighbors nearby to witness anything. Angela kept her feelings in check, ready to hear what Janice had to say. "Angela, if Jacob is in there, you need to bring him out right now," Janice demanded. Angela remained silent. Instead, she took out a toothpick to clean her teeth after dinner. Then she spoke last. "There's no need to raise your voice, I'm right here, but I think my son doesn't want to talk to you right now. It might be best if you gave him some space." Janice spoke up. "So he's in there. Bring him out so I can fix this. This is all just a mistake." Angela then took out her phone and played a video she had sent earlier. "Is this the mistake you mean?" Janice covered her mouth, shocked and embarrassed, as Angela continued. "I wouldn't call that a mistake. You seem quite close to him, with your hands on each other. Well, it looks like you're not making a mistake since he's right here with you." Janice lost her patience and confronted Angela. "Listen, you need to back off. You don't know anything about this situation, so do yourself a favor and get out of my way before this gets messy. Do you understand what I'm saying?" Janice was both surprised and scared when Angela moved quickly. In an instant, she found herself pushed against the wall. Angela held her there calmly. Angela showed a sharp razor and held it near Janice's neck, smiling. "I don't take orders from anyone in my own home." She waved the razor. My father gave this to me when I was young. My grandfather was a barber, and they didn't have fancy tools back then, just things like this knife. Angela flicked the blade above her ear, cutting a small piece of hair. See? It's still very sharp. She gave a chilly smile to Janice, making her feel cold with fear. You know, this reminds me of a talk I had with your mother. Janice felt panic at that thought, realizing she didn't really know these people. Angela continued, But my granddad was a strong man standing tall in Birmingham, England. He ran with a tough crowd that knew how to protect themselves. Many people got hurt, but my granddad had his ways. Janice trembled when Angela moved the blade closer to her eye. Angela's expression remained icy, and she kept talking. You hurt my son by being with a man who has caused him pain for years. You disrespected him, and when he leaves, you come here and demand to see him. Janice couldn't find her voice. The fear silenced her. Angela noticed this and slowly took the blade away. My son cares for you, even now. That's why I'm letting you leave tonight safe. Janice felt a rush of cold fear and relief as Angela let go of her. I won't tell you to stay away from him, nor will I dictate his actions. That's entirely up to him, but you should know I will always support my son. You can go now. We're done here. Janice gathered her things and walked to her car. Suddenly, Angela said, Janice, if you ever hurt my son again, or if you say anything about tonight, I will ensure you know everything I discussed with your mother. Do we understand each other? Angela made sure Janice noticed the razor shining in the moonlight. Janice nodded and quickly drove away. Angela smiled, pleased, as she walked back inside. Simon was waiting for her. So, how did it go? Angela began to take off her coat. Simon admired her, still enchanted by her after all these years. I believe the issue with Janice will resolve itself. I think she understands how she hurt Jacob and knows it's best to give him space until the divorce is final. The message she sent Jacob seemed more about doing the right thing than anything else. Simon smiled, knowing how much they both cared for their son. Angela returned his smile. Yes, just a little nudge in the right direction. They shared a quiet moment as she lay beside him. Simon, our boy is hurting. I wish I could take that pain away. He didn't deserve this. Simon nodded. No, he did not. Slash and things were going to get tougher for him. But he wouldn't be alone. We'll be right there with him every step of the way, Angela said as she leaned in to kiss her husband. I love you. Simon kissed her back, feeling the warmth in her eyes. I love you too. You're so beautiful. They shared tender moments together before resting for the challenges ahead for their son. Back to Jacob. I woke up in the afternoon really late. I must have slept heavily after the night before. I looked at my phone and saw messages from Janice asking to talk. Then I noticed they had stopped early in the morning. Whatever. I had a busy day. I stepped outside my room and was greeted by the delicious smell of eggs, bacon, turkey, and topped-off pancakes. Someone must have slept in, I thought as I heard my mom's voice in the kitchen. My childhood came rushing back as I smiled at the comforting sense. I had a reason to sleep in. My dad had teased my mom earlier, and she had blushed but seemed happy. Jacob, come talk to me outside while your mom cooks, he said. We went outside into the beautiful late fall morning. The leaves were bright shades of orange, red, and brown. I knew this conversation would be important, especially after everything that happened. I was going to need all the help I could get. I talked to a lawyer about what happened last night, my dad said. You and Jackie will meet him later today. He's coming from Philly, but Jacob, you need to be prepared. This might lead to serious troubles. If things go badly, jail could be a possibility. But remember, no matter what, your mom, Aunt Jackie, and I will support you, he continued, as I felt tears come. I told him, I love you too, Dad. We both took a moment to gather ourselves. I then mentioned my divorce attorney, Clark Duncan, who I knew from high school. Tall and strong, he had gone into law after experiencing a tough situation in his own life. His mom had hurt his dad during a divorce, and despite clear signs of cheating, his dad lost custody. It ended very sadly. Clark decided to become a family lawyer so that fathers could have a fighting chance in difficult custody cases. After telling my dad about Clark, we arranged meetings for later. At 1, we would meet the lawyer from Philly, and at 3, we would see Clark. When 1 o'clock arrived, we met at a diner. The lawyer was shorter than most, and his name was Lucas Richards. "I understand you had a situation at the bar," he said, looking shrewd yet friendly. I took a deep breath as I recalled what happened. "Yes, that's right." He smiled, as if reassuring me. "My goal is to help you through this without any problems on your record." He reviewed the information provided and said, "I have witness testimony saying you were trying to leave. I also have a statement from Jackie." Lucas then added, "I'll find a psychologist in Baltimore for an evaluation on you. You might have a case for self-defense. It seems like the stress you faced overwhelmed you. You weren't yourself for a moment." "You will go to trial, but I believe you'll come out okay," he assured me. "The trial starts in 3 months, so there's time for everyone involved to prepare. However, it gives me time to learn more about the people involved and prepare for the court. I heard you're going to see Mr. Clark soon." "Yes," I nodded. I felt a bit better. "Good luck with your case, sir." I asked if he had anything that might help us too. "Please share what you find." "Sure thing." We shook hands, and my dad and I headed to see Clark. As we drove, Dad started to talk. "Jacob, you know your mother and I love you. But this situation is going to be tough on you. I want you to join me at Mickey's. Mickey's is a classic gym in our area. It keeps kids busy, and it's where some of the best fighters train. Many famous fighters have trained there. Jacob, do you know why your mother and I go to the gym?" I looked at him and said it was to stay fit. "I guessed you want to be here for a while, and I want that too. That, and it helps keep me awake at night when you're out late." Dad paused and smiled, likely amused with himself. "I'm not going to lie. That's one of the perks of being in your late 40s. But that's not the main reason. It helps keep us grounded." I was confused, so he explained. "Son, we love you and will do anything for you. But before you were born, your mother and I were tough people. We've seen the world differently and acted on it. We've dealt with our fair share of trouble. We hoped that part of us stayed behind, but after what happened the other night, we realized we were wrong. Jacob, you lost control that night. It was understandable, but you nearly harmed those guys. If they hadn't done what they did to you, I would have been really upset with them. But neither your mother nor I want you to become like us. We don't want you to feel the weight of taking a life and living with the memories that come with it. Training at the gym won't just keep you in shape. It's to help you avoid becoming like us. We care too much to let that happen." I was surprised by this. I knew my parents had strength, but this was a lot to take in. Still, Dad was right. I did lose control. If Jackie hadn't been there, I might have hurt Derek. He may not be a good person, but he's not worth losing my freedom over. "All right, Dad, I'm in. When do we start?" Dad smiled and parked the car, then opened the door. "After we talked with your friend, I looked up and saw we were in his parking lot. Clark's practice was right next to his office. His wife, Sheila, works as his assistant. She used to be military police, but moved to help her husband after her service. Not many women go into private work, but she was well suited for it. They lived in a 2-story house with 3 bedrooms, connected to Clark's office for convenience. As we walked in, Sheila greeted us. "Hey, Jacob!" She hugged me after hearing what happened. She and Clark had been busy getting my case ready. He must have jumped into action when he learned about it. He's dealt with similar situations too many times and knows that having information early makes a difference. Sheila welcomed my dad, and we headed to Clark's office. Seeing him was still something I needed to adjust to. His strong, tall presence reminded me of a video game character. When he spotted me, he quickly left his desk and wrapped me in a hug. "Jacob, I'm really sorry this happened to you. The video you sent must have been tough to watch." I gave him a sad smile. "You should try being the one recording it." He frowned and hugged me again. He introduced himself to my dad, and with my okay, they talked openly. I shared about my relationship with Janice over the years, Derek and his team bothering me at work, and what happened that night at the bar. I asked Clark to give any helpful information to my other lawyer, Richard. He nodded and agreed. "Wow, I see why you were caught off guard. There was no warning from her, and she didn't communicate any issues with your marriage. She just chose to cheat. That gives us something to work with. It would be one thing if she had approached you about any problems. Instead, she made a different choice. And then there's the trouble you faced with Derek. I remember him from high school. He wasn't pleasant back then, and it seems he hasn't changed. We could address that too." I was puzzled. "What do you mean go after Derek? He's the one who could get me in a lot of trouble." Clark smiled. Since you asked me to share information with Mr. Richards, I'd bet he has some good advice for you. I nodded slowly. He smiled again. If we handle this correctly, we can argue that what happened that night was in self-defense, and it could help if Janice tries to use this against you in the divorce. Now, let's talk about Janice. I took a deep breath before he went on. I had a feeling this was going to be more difficult than I wanted it to be. You have a strong case for cheating. Recording everything was a smart move, even though it was tough for you. Most judges in this area know that things have to be proven for divorce, which is why they often suggest marriage counseling first. Usually, this delays the divorce due to costs, and that's not what we want. Yes, we can show that she was unfaithful. But has this happened before? I paused, recalling what Derek had told me that night. He was even proud of it. Yes, I heard from Derek. She has been unfaithful for years, long before our daughter Elizabeth was born. It's possible she has cheated on me with Derek and others, and maybe our baby isn't even mine, but could belong to Derek. The room fell silent as Clark absorbed this information. We need proof of this. To get that, we need Janice's help. I stood up in shock. What do you mean, her help? Are you serious? But then I saw that familiar smile from Clark, the one he had when he thought of a clever plan. I slowly sat back down. Okay, Clark, I see that look. What's your idea? He glanced at me and said, It could help us more than you think, but you probably won't like it. I raised my eyebrow. What is it? You'll need to talk to Janice in person so you can get close enough to put this tiny device in her phone. The device looked just like a small piece of plastic. What is it? I asked. Clark explained. First, is your wife covered by your plan? I nodded. Yes, but if she has anything that could be used against her, she'll most likely delete it. Yes, most people do that. But what they often don't realize is that deleted data often remains accessible. What? That little device can help recover deleted data saved in the cloud, like chats, videos, and pictures. Plus, it can get around the phone's password. You'll find the instructions with it. If you can manage to get to her phone, you can gather evidence. Once you send the texts to me, it should only take a few minutes to get a year's worth of data. The longer that device stays on, the more evidence it collects, which can be useful in court. Clark looked at the small device. Clever, right? I got this from a person who used it himself during his divorce. His family wasn't fond of him, and he used devices like this to gather evidence against them. He even showed the evidence at a gathering, which was quite a form of revenge. But back to the point, you need to get it into her phone. Is there a way you can meet her? I thought for a moment. She's been calling my phone non-stop since last night. I ignored her, but I could reach out to her. I want proof of her messages. Most likely she's deleting them. I could put the device in her phone and then access her texts and call logs. Since it's my phone and not hers, there aren't any privacy violations. Then we could use what we have gathered for the divorce, Clark added. And if it turns out she has done more than she claims, she's in big trouble. The judge could overlook the request for marriage counseling if things are serious enough. We all nodded in agreement. With that, we shook hands, then my dad and I left the office. On the way home, I felt like a weight had lifted off my shoulders. I was still hurt, but now I felt like I could take action. Once home, my dad and I changed for the gym. I had never been to one before, and my dad made me pay for it. We started with 15 minutes of cardio. I thought I wouldn't last past 5 minutes on the treadmill, but my dad pushed me through it. I still don't know how he did that. Next, we did some weight training for my chest and shoulders and spent time on the mat. My dad wasn't joking about how hard we were working. He didn't take it easy on me. By the end, after 3 hours, my whole body was aching. My dad asked if I was okay. I ended up running to the restroom right after he asked that. He couldn't help but laugh, and honestly, I couldn't blame him. I had never taken my health seriously, but it was time to start. Afterward, I looked at him with a hint of irritation, but then smiled. Good. That means it's working. As I headed toward the showers, I heard someone calling my name. I turned around and saw a woman approaching. She was tall, with a lovely face and blue eyes. Her skin was fair with a hint of something unique. Her dark hair fell to her shoulders, and she looked fit. She wore black leggings and a tank top, looking like a fitness model as she walked toward me. She stopped right in front of me and said, "Hey, I didn't expect to see you here. How are you doing since the other night?" I was puzzled about how she knew about that night and who I was. Seeing my confusion, she quickly introduced herself. I'm Rachel MacArthur, or you might know me as Officer MacArthur. I was the officer who took you in that night. I was surprised. I knew someone had arrested me, but I didn't expect it to be someone so striking. Her lovely laugh broke the tension as I processed what she said. I'm not easily recognized when I'm not in my uniform. So, how are you doing? I managed to smile at her question. As well as can be expected. I can't say much about my case. My trial is in 3 months. My divorce? It's hard to say right now. She smiled and gave me a hug. Good luck. I'm glad you're keeping busy in the meantime. I hope things work out for you. I suddenly realized I hadn't properly introduced myself. I'm sorry. My name is Jacob Galloway. It's nice to officially meet you. She smiled as she shook my hand. Nice to meet you too, she said. I'm going to get started now. What time do you usually come in? Maybe we can work together sometime. I thought for a moment before answering. Maybe I can come a bit later to see you. I noticed my dad giving me a thumbs up from behind her. I appreciated the gesture, but right now, I'm not thinking about another relationship. That sounds great, she said. Anyway, Jacob, it was nice seeing you again. I hope everything goes well. Take care of yourself, okay? I'll see you around. She smiled and walked towards the indoor track. My dad grinned broadly. That's my boy. Well done. Whatever, Dad, let's just go home. All right. He started the car and we headed home. Once we arrived, I went straight to my phone. Janice started calling again, sending the same messages about how much she loved me and that this was just a mistake. I ignored most of them and replied, we need to talk. 6 o'clock. Almost immediately, she texted back, thank you, baby, I love you. I ignored that too. Before I left, my dad stopped me. He handed me a pin. Put this on your shirt. It's got good recording quality. You'll need it in case she tries anything. I know you chose the park because it's public, but remember, it's a Wednesday. Not many people are around. Use this if she tries to say something untrue. Also, take this. See if you can swab Elizabeth's cheek without her noticing. Trust me, she'll use every trick to win you back. I hugged my mom, thanked my parents for everything, and then headed to the park to meet Janice. When I arrived, it was as Dad said, public space, but not many people around. I walked deeper into the park and saw Janice and Elizabeth sitting on a bench. As soon as Janice noticed me, she rushed over to hug me. I gently raised my hands. We came here to talk, so let's talk. Janice looked sad, but I pushed my feelings aside. I needed answers. We sat in silence for a few moments, then I spoke. How long? Janice started to tear up and said, maybe we can work through this. We could see a therapist. I love you and I realize how much I've hurt you. I'm so sorry. I wish I could take it all back, but I can't. While she cried, I kept my face calm and asked again, how long? When she finally stopped crying, she said, 2 months. I suspected she was lying, but I didn't say anything. I walked over to hold Elizabeth as we looked at the sunset. She leaned on my shoulder without noticing the swab in my hand. I quietly collected a sample from Elizabeth's cheek and stored it away. Then I put Elizabeth back in her stroller and asked Janice for her phone. I don't believe you. I saw the hurt in her eyes, but she handed it to me. Just as Dad said, she deleted all her pictures and messages, but she didn't notice the small device hidden under my sleeve. I pretended to browse her phone while secretly installing the device. When I heard it click, I knew it was in. I returned her phone and we sat there quietly. I felt my phone vibrate. Clark was confirming he was now linked to her cloud, collecting what he could from the phone I had bought. I didn't plan to get back with her, but I still had questions. Why did you do it, Janice? Why him? She paused. I don't know, he was just different. I replied, so let me get this right. You brought a guy I dislike into our home and made choices that hurt us because he was different. You need to do better than that, Janice. She cried hard before she could speak again. I felt neglected. I loved you, but our relationship got predictable. You were great, but I wanted something different. I nodded, remembering how things had been good before. If it was so good, why didn't you talk to me? Her response came through tears. I don't know, I wish I did. Then I asked her, how did you and Derek meet? She replied, he was at an event for one of our investors. He was charming and I was vulnerable. We were chatting at the bar, enjoying some drinks together. He told me I had impressive qualities and that I looked nice. As we talked, he moved a bit closer. He rested his hand on my leg gently and eventually kissed me. After that, we went to his hotel room, and that was the start of everything. I sat there listening to this woman I thought I knew share stories I never expected to hear. When I got up to leave, I looked right at her and asked, "Is anyone else involved?" She insisted there wasn't. Then I asked, "Is Elizabeth my child?" She raised her hand to hit me, but I caught her wrist. I told her not to give me a lecture about loyalty, especially after what she had done. She had chosen to be with another man, and I reminded her of our commitment to each other, what being married truly meant. I told her I wanted a divorce. If she had questions, she could talk to my lawyer. I was offering her and Elizabeth a month to stay in my parents' house, which was in their name. That meant the house wouldn't belong to her no matter what happened. She stood up, refusing to accept the divorce. "I will fight this," she said, frustrated. I stepped closer, my anger clear in my eyes, and it stunned her. She sat back down. "A mistake?" I questioned. "Leaving your wallet at home is a mistake. Cheating is a choice." I wanted her to understand the seriousness of her actions. I couldn't tolerate this situation anymore. She had the right to fight it, but I warned her that I could make the process tough. I felt deep pain knowing she had been with someone else, and it hurt me to think about it. I turned away from her and said goodbye, telling her I'd see her in court. When I got home, I received a text from Clark asking me to meet him in his office. I went over quickly. When I arrived, he had a look of concern on his face. "You did a great job on the phone," he said while I sat on the couch. "My tech got some bad news. Do you want me to stay with you for this?" I shook my head. I would handle it alone. He assured me my divorce should go smoothly. While he opened the door, Sheila came in. She rushed over to hug me, clearly worried. She said she and Clark were there for me and that I was like family. I thought about how I had set them up on a blind date, which turned into a wonderful relationship. Even though my marriage was falling apart, I felt happy for them. After they left, I opened my laptop and found a disturbing collection of texts and videos that revealed things I never knew about my wife's past. It was a painful discovery that highlighted how little I knew her. Over the next few months, I focused on working out and training rigorously, using my pain as motivation. I transformed my body, losing over 100 pounds and getting in shape. During this time, I grew close to a woman named Rachel. She had an interesting background and became a motivating force in my life with her healthy habits. As I learned more about her family, I found that we shared similar experiences, especially regarding our parents' pasts. Rachel's father was a former Army member who later became a cop, making an impression in his field. Her mother had a challenging background, which added to our connection as we bonded over our stories. The crew, had found themselves in trouble and didn't want to share the blame, so they decided it was best to remove her from the situation. What she didn't know was that her crew had set her up. Luckily, her father found out about the plan and managed to save her. Sadly, her crew didn't make it, and her parents were injured in the chaos that followed. While recovering in the hospital, her parents grew closer and eventually fell in love. One of those moments resulted in Rachel. When Alexis found out she was pregnant, Stephen proposed to her on the spot. Of course, she said yes. They had a simple yet beautiful wedding, surrounded by close friends and family. Alexis had to serve some time in prison, but she was released early so she could be there for Rachel's birth. Over time, they both turned their lives around. Her father remained a respected police officer for 20 years before retiring. He now works as a private investigator, helping with insurance cases and sometimes assisting individuals, but his main focus is running programs for at-risk youth. Alexis also gives back to the community by working with kids and serving as a social worker, helping those in need. Alexis once told me that her parents are still very affectionate with each other, often to the point of embarrassing her, and they both look much younger than their age. Her mother is often mistaken for her sister, and her father, despite being in his late 40s, is strong and athletic, standing tall at 6'1". I remember laughing the first time she told me this story, and I still smile when I think about it. I ran into her at the gym one day, and something unexpected happened. "Hey, Jacob, how's everything going with the divorce and trial?" she asked. I took a moment before answering. The trial was pushed to the end of the year, likely because the prosecutor needs more statements. My lawyer has been gathering information too, so I think it'll turn out okay. The divorce has taken longer than I thought, but we finally have a date set. I think it'll be quick once we start. Janice had been avoiding our first meeting for months, but I was ready to move on and find something new. It was at that moment I truly saw Rachel. I always knew she was beautiful, but this time I saw something more. Kindness and warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. "Hey, Rachel, I know this might be awkward, but would you like to go out with me sometime? Maybe grab coffee or see a movie?" Rachel smiled before replying, "Wow, that's a lot of calories for a cop, and you didn't even offer to take me to a donut shop." We both laughed. "Actually, I was going to ask you out if you didn't. Ever since I first saw you, I've wanted to. But I didn't want to push things given everything you've been through." Then she leaned in and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. "I like comedies and buttered popcorn. Does Friday at 7 work for you?" I grinned. "Yeah, I'll give you a call. It'll be different now that I'm picking you up for a date and not just driving us to the gym." She smiled back. "See you later, big guy." For the first time in a long while, I left the gym feeling hopeful. The day of the divorce hearing finally arrived, and we were prepared. Janice sat on one side with her lawyer, and I sat on the other with mine. Her lawyer made his case. "Your Honor, my client understands she has broken her marriage vows, but she believes with the right help, they can work through it. They have a young daughter who deserves a stable home, and we believe marriage counseling is the best solution. He was good, but my lawyer, Clark, was better." The judge asked if we had anything to add. Clark stood up. "Yes, Your Honor. I would like to ask Mrs. Galloway a few questions." After a brief discussion with her lawyer, Janice agreed. "Mrs. Galloway, you say you've only been involved with Mr. Winters, correct?" Janice hesitated, clearly ashamed, but answered, "Yes, that's correct." Clark then pulled out a folder. "I asked the court to look at these images and documents I'm about to present." He pressed a button, and a video began to play, showing Janice in multiple compromising situations with different people, including Derek. Janice screamed, "No, this can't be happening." The judge called for a break after her outburst. A couple of hours later, Janice and her lawyer requested a meeting with us. Her lawyer looked embarrassed, but not with us, clearly with his client. He asked, "What are you offering?" Clark smiled and responded, "Nothing. Your client will keep all her belongings and will not return to the marital home. She will also give up her rights to contact Mr. Galloway. Furthermore, she will sign an agreement waiving any claim for child support, as the child is not Mr. Galloway's, but Mr. Sanders', based on DNA evidence found in the home. We will also be suing Mr. Sanders for alienation of affections, and we expect full cooperation. If she agrees, we won't press charges for fraud, and she and her child will not contact Mr. Galloway moving forward. Mrs. Galloway will keep what's hers, and there will be no spousal support." Janice talked with her lawyer. She said she would agree to everything but wanted 15 minutes with me without anyone else around. I knew I didn't have to allow it, but I said okay. Clark and her lawyer left us alone for a bit. After a moment, Janice started to speak. She mentioned that things go back to when we were in high school. People called her fast because she would date many guys, including Derek. But then she said when she met me, she changed for a while. She continued to share that a few years after we got married, she ran into Derek again, and things didn't go as she planned. She thought she'd moved on from that part of her life, but she admitted she hadn't. "I think I have a problem," she said. She acknowledged that it would be easy to blame Derek, but she knew that wasn't fair. "I could have told you what I was feeling and asked for help, but I didn't. I was scared." Her eyes filled with tears as she added, "I will support you as best as I can with your case against them." After that, she stood, gave me a hug, and kissed my cheek. "I know it's hard to believe, but I never stopped loving you." Then she welcomed the lawyers back, signed the papers, and made the divorce official. She shared all the details of her past relationships, identifying everyone involved. Then they went to civil court, which led to a lot of financial troubles for those people. Business leaders, teachers, even my co-workers, including Derek and my boss, faced serious consequences. I ended up receiving $2 million in damages, no matter what happened in my case. Derek and his friends were left in a difficult spot, both financially and personally. Months went by, and Rachel and I became a couple. At first, we spent time together just enjoying dates. On our fourth date, we went for a walk and returned to my house. After my divorce, I decided to stay there and get rid of everything that reminded me of my past life. I heard Janice was no longer welcomed by her parents. In a surprising turn, they gave her some money and sent her and Elizabeth away. Last I knew, she was working in a small clinic somewhere in Massachusetts. Rachel mentioned she needed to freshen up after our walk, and when she finished, she came out wrapped in a towel. We spent the night talking and getting to know each other better. I took her words seriously, so I started learning more about relationships. Our connection grew, and we became more comfortable with each other. As time went on, we spent more time together during breaks and shared many moments filled with laughter and deep talks. We even met each other's families. By the end of the year, we had been together for 7 months and were in love. One day before she was heading to work, Rachel stopped me and promised to come back home safely. She smiled beautifully and said, "I love you too much to not return." I pulled her close and kissed her. "I love you too, Rachel. Thank you for being in my life." She smiled and replied, "You can't make me cry before work. What would the neighbors think?" I told her they could think whatever they wanted. I loved her, and she returned my kiss. After she left for work, I felt grateful for our relationship. When she returned, we continued to grow closer, enjoying our time together. Eventually, the trial started. The prosecution painted me as someone hurt seeking revenge, but with the help of witnesses and evidence showing my emotional struggles, the case didn't look strong. After 2 months during the closing arguments, the jury found me not guilty of all charges. The relief I felt was immense. Derek, who was back on his feet, glared at me angrily, but I smiled at him. I heard he had to move in with Janice and their daughter. I truly hope their child finds a better path than the one her parents took. We had a big celebration at our home. Both of our parents loved us very much. Rachel's parents appreciated me for caring for their daughter and being there for her. My parents admired Rachel for standing by me during my hard times and showing me what love really is. They shared a special understanding, as if they had a bond formed from shared experiences. Then, I decided to make an announcement. Thank you all for your love and support. I could not have made it without you. But tonight is not just about me. It is about the woman I love, without whom I would have felt very lost. I got down on one knee in front of a surprised and tearful Rachel. Her smile shined even through her tears. Despite the cold, I didn't mind as we stood by the warm fire. Rachel, you found me when I was at my lowest, when I felt broken inside, but you never turned away from me. You were there from the very start of my new beginning, helping me to rebuild my life. Your kindness kept me going, and you were one of the reasons I didn't give up. Then you gave me the greatest gift of all, your heart. I promise to treasure it and do my best to make you smile whenever you think of me. Because whenever I think of you, I feel emotions I thought I wouldn't feel again. Your love is something I value deeply, and it brings me happiness I want to share. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small red box. I opened it to show a lovely diamond ring with the image of Saint Michael engraved on it, the patron saint of peacekeepers. Rachel, will you honor me by becoming my wife? Rachel jumped into my arms, showering me with kisses as she said yes with everyone. We were married 3 months later. At the wedding reception, it was Rachel's turn to speak. My dear husband, you have given me one of the greatest gifts, your love. I smiled at her and returned her kiss. Then she took the microphone. But my love, it's not just your love that means so much to me. I was confused but captivated by her joyful expression. The gifts you've given me will be here in 9 months. Everyone cheered. Our fathers smiled with tears in their eyes, and our mothers celebrated together, jumping with joy. I stood up and embraced Rachel, kissing her deeply. I love you so much, Rachel Galloway. She looked into my eyes and said, I love you more. We shared another kiss, filled with love. The next year, we had our first Thanksgiving as a family. Both sets of parents were there. There was an unspoken agreement that the men would stay out of the kitchen. The twins, Rebecca and Hector, were being loved and spoiled by their grandfathers. I saw Rachel making silly faces at me from the kitchen. I mirrored her expressions, trying to make her laugh. Rachel decided she would step back from her job after the twins arrived. She had been a police officer since she graduated from the academy at 19, and now, at 28, She wanted to spend time at home with our family. After some changes at her job, the state appointed a new regional director, and I took a team with me from the project in Pottsville. We earned more than enough to support our family. And yes, the twins were tested for DNA, all at Rachel's request. I truly love this amazing woman. Finally, I could have something I never thought I'd find. A happy ending. /////. If you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales.